Well, Amazon has finally released patch notes for New World, and these are going to be applying to open beta. I would wager the vast majority of these will also be for launch unless there are small tweaks. And as promised, I am bringing you coverage on these things to let you know what has been fixed in all this time so we can see what they're doing about the game. I think looking over the list, the first thing that jumps out to me is that many of the bugs that plague the dungeons have been fixed. I don't know if all of them have been fixed, but this was a huge issue during the closed beta. I'd say probably 30% of the time the dungeon would bug, depending on which dungeon we were doing, which is a pretty high chance. So the fact that they got those fixed right away is really, really good news, and I imagine they will continue fixing those bugs up until and through launch. The next thing I want to point out is in the world section, improve spawn rate throughout the world at locations that were bottlenecking players on the same quest and mission. This was a huge fucking problem during the closed beta. A lot of quests, you had to kill a specific enemy or mob, and everyone would just be packed around it waiting, and it would create these huge bottlenecks, which would probably be even worse at launch of the game. So I'm glad they have improved that. We'll see how good it is during the open beta to get an idea, but that is another step in the right direction. Another huge improvement in the same vein is fixing multiple quests across the world that were causing bottlenecks due to large amounts of players attempting the same objective. This is, again, kill 3 boars and heart skin them or whatever. There's a thing where all of these players would converge in the same areas trying to do this, 10 players. And not only did you have to help get a shot on it to kill it, you had to be the player to skin it. So that is a huge improvement. We'll see how much they've changed that. I'm hoping it's significant because that was another big issue. The next thing I want to draw your attention to is under tech, where it says fixed various town mission exploits. During the closed beta, you could do the town board quests to basically power level your character very, very quickly. And there were ways of refreshing the board and things very fast to make this happen very, very fast. They've obviously made changes to that, but the last time I saw the town board, it was kind of in shambles compared to where it started. It was almost not even worth doing. It went from being way too worth doing to almost nothing. I'm hoping they found a middle ground somewhere, so we'll have to check this out during the open beta. Another thing I want to point out is that they've increased damage for all expedition AI by 13%. The expeditions were pretty easy during the closed beta. We didn't struggle with them hardly at all. Maybe one mechanic on the end game boss or end boss of an expedition we'd struggle with the first time we were there. But other than that, it was pretty straightforward. So this should just make them more challenging in general. The next point is that PvP scaling has been reduced. If you weren't aware that during the closed beta, the higher level you got from the other player that you were fighting, the more damage they dealt to you and the less you did to them, to the point that a level 10 could absolutely throttle a level 60, which is a bit weird. I mean, it's obviously nice to have anti-griefing measures, which was what this was probably designed for, but the fact that level actually worked to your detriment in some cases is just kind of strange. I'll be curious to see how much they tweak this. It doesn't say exactly, how much they changed it, so we don't know exactly, did they change it by 50% or 20% or 30%? And this is probably not something we're going to find out in the open beta because I don't think you're going to have too many level 60s, in 3 days. That's pretty hard to do. So we'll have to see how this goes at launch, but this could be a good change depending on exactly how much it is. Looking over the weapon balancing, the first thing that strikes me is they've done a lot with sword. The leaping strike startup frames is reduced, which means it should be faster, and it has longer distance. One of the problems with this ability during the closed beta was that it was basically your gap closer for the sword, but it almost never worked. You could almost never catch anyone with it. This will actually allow you the chance to probably catch someone, and I'm curious to try it out in PvP. Another thing notable is that the Berserk duration is reduced to 12 seconds from 15, so that's a 20% reduction. And the cooldown has been increased to 18 seconds, so it'll take a little bit longer to use, which will be curious because a lot of people used hatchets during the closed beta, and we'll see if that continues to be the case in the open beta and beyond. Looking over the Great Axe here, it looks like the direction they're going is to making you less tanky when using it. They're reducing the damage reduction you basically gain from using a couple of abilities so that you take more damage because they're popular abilities. Perhaps one of the biggest changes listed in the patch notes is having to do with equip loads. The damage bonuses are still the same, 20% for light, 10% for medium, 0 for heavy, but they've also increased the healing by that amount for each of those. So you're going to heal more in light armor and heal more in medium armor than you would in heavy armor. But what they've done is they've reduced healing by 20% to account for this. So if you're healing in light armor, your healing is going to be roughly the same as it was before. Another thing here that they changed regarding this is that the threshold weight to meet medium has gone from 15 to 13. This means you have to be 13 or lighter to stay light instead of 15. So you're not going to be as tanky. You're going to lose some resistance. And the same for heavy. Now you have to be under 23 to be medium. Previously it was 30. So it's going to be a lot harder to achieve medium and light than it was before. meaning that you're not going to be able to like throw in a piece of heavy armor in there probably and get a little bit more resistance. You might have to go full light or full medium in order to mate these. And if you just look over what the balancing they've done with the actual armor pieces themselves, this sort of kind of goes hand in hand with that. You can tell that they're trying to make it so heavy is heavy, medium is medium, light is light, and that you're not somewhere in the middle getting the best of both worlds. Another couple of interesting changes is it looks like they've tried to make siege turrets a bit more effective. Cannon damage, for instance, has increased. Repeater max damage fall off has been reduced. It's also starts at a longer range, so that's not likely to happen. And they've also increased the damage of siege weapons. So that'll be interesting for PvP to see how that works in the war scenarios. And healing potions as a whole seem like they're more effective. They were kind of borderline. I mean, they were usable in the closed beta, but this should make them even more potent. I'll be curious to see if that's good or bad for PvP. Should be good for PvE. We'll see how that balances out for PvP. And another big nerf here is that Amber Gems, which previously converted a portion of a weapon's damage to nature damage, which scaled off and made you scale off the focus stat. So that would allow you to, like, for instance, make a Great Axe build that scaled off focus. They reduced the damage, so you can't do this as easily. I think it's because they don't want you to have like a Great Axe build with a life staff that is as effective as in terms of damage as a pure Great Axe build and still be able to heal yourself well. So they've reduced this a bit. We'll see how that pans out. A couple of other things they've added to the game. It sounds like they've added the T4 and T5 Azoth Staves so that you can keep continuing with the main story quest. So I'd be curious to see if you'll be able to do level 50 corruption breaches and level 60 corruption breaches now that you have these because they weren't in the game during the closed beta. Another thing they mentioned is that they are normalized the perks for all factions, weapons, and armor. This means that they should probably all have the same bonuses now, so it doesn't matter which faction you choose, they're going to have the same. They also made this armor harder to get by costing more faction reputation or the resource for your faction that will cost more per piece. The last thing here is I'm just going to run through some of the bugs that are listed in the bug section of what they fixed. I probably won't go all through these because there's so many, and I'll let you guys read through them, but I'm just going to point out some of the notable ones, at least that I've noticed. The first thing is that Great Axe Heavy Pull passive no longer causes heavy attack to hit twice. So this is indeed a bug, has been confirmed. So this is, you're no longer going to get that double damage on heavy attacks. And Great Axe kind of sucks for me, because that's what I was going for. But that's probably good that they fixed that, because that was just OP as hell. Another bug with the Great Axe, it seems Enduring Strike was not actually reducing damage while using Grit, so now that's working. And just looking through the rest of these, I think it's pretty clear to say that the vast majority of bug fixes are either to do with dungeons, expeditions, or the war, the siege scenarios where you're actually fighting 50v50. Like, it seems like 90% of their time has been spent on these things and possibly weapon balancing in terms of bugs. There are, various and sundry bugs that they've been working on, but generally speaking, they've been working on those two things. So if you were concerned about how the wars were going to work like me, that's probably good. And if you're concerned about the dungeons, bugging out or whatever like me, that's probably good. But outside of that, it doesn't seem like they've done a lot of work in the general landscape and other things like that. To be perfectly honest, those were the least buggy areas for me, so that makes total sense. And obviously, if the war is not working properly and the dungeons aren't working properly, you're going to have a huge problem with the player base. So that's probably smart of them to focus on that and then getting to the smaller nitty-gritty bugs out on the landscape after those things are fixed. Unfortunately, during the open world beta, we're probably going to have very little time to test wars. I mean, you might get a few wars on your server during that time period. So it's going to be really hard to test these, and I doubt too many people will get to test the dungeons either because they begin at level 25. But this is patch notes also that are going to affect things at launch, so we'll have to update you again then. So stay tuned for more information about that. Just a reminder, the open beta does start later today. Probably by the time you're watching this video, it'll be just an hour or two away. So if you guys are going to join, make sure you request access on the Steam page. You just click a button that says request access, and then hopefully you can just download and play the game. So what do you guys think about these changes? Are they good changes, bad changes? Are you happy with the progress they've made in this amount of time, or are you hoping to see more? Let me know in the comments below.